It looks like our first bottle brush blooms are starting to bloom now. Most of them aren't even all the way open. There's one there. I've been just kind of looking around the yard, checking out the fruit trees and stuff. Although that's not really a fruit tree, it can be used for teas and stuff. It doesn't have the best flavor. There's natural sugar and stuff in the blooms. These old areas that were livestock pens and stuff are just overgrown. So, kind of just looking to see where I can plant other trees and stuff, other fruit basically trees. Had 3 goat areas. This was a goat pen here. That was one for the bucks, and then, you know, there was a trail there to goats back there, which was the larger run. Got a big giant male mulberry tree there, and a nice citronella, and it's dropped most of its fruit, but there's still piles of fruit on it. Pretty nasty freeze. So the Suriname cherry, it's hard to tell if it's going to come back, or, you know, if it's dead, or if it's, you know, just going to come back from the roots, or, you know, like I said, maybe not at all. As you can see, there's some new growth on a lot of the citrus. A lot of them already have like bloom heads for flowers. Actually, way up there, you probably cannot see it, but I'm in the sun, so I can't see. But there are definitely up higher, wherever it gets more, the plants get more sun, they seem to bloom faster, like up high, closer to the sun. But yeah, there's definitely some bloom heads on this white grapefruit. Citronella here, there's definitely some little bloom heads on it already, you know, despite there still being good fruit on it. So hopefully have a good harvest next year, and hopefully we can get some fertilizer, you know, for all the trees that we do have. One of the pawpaw trees. This is the Florida Panhandle seedling, like from Tallahassee or somewhere around that area. There's like a bloom head there, bloom head there. A few of the pawpaws are still blooming, but I really am not happy with the growth yet. So we need like 5 or 10 really big pawpaw trees. So they need to start growing high and spreading out so that we get a higher rate of pollination, and so that they can actually hold some actual fruit on it. This is the grapefruit seedling that I look most forward to trying fruit on last year or early this year. There was 2 fruits, one fell early. The other one just disappeared. I was like, you know, I'm just gonna wait 2 or 3 days and come back out here and get it. It was somewhere up there, and I came back and it wasn't on the ground. Either an animal or a human come over here and stole it. So I don't even see any new growth yet, but a lot of times you'll see like little leaf tips coming out, and then little tiny round green like balls or whatever that, you know, they swell up over time, and then you can see the white on them where they're fixing to bloom, and then they'll open up a white bloom. So maybe this year we can actually try it. It's a red variety based on the color of the pill and stuff, so it's hard to tell which cultivar this was, but I picked things from grocery stores and stuff that I thought was really ultra sweet, ultra good quality, and that's what I planted the seeds, you know, like 15 years ago or whatever, 16 years ago. One of them didn't turn out very good at all. This one looks like it looks like a grapefruit. Like the other one was a grapefruit seedling that was probably hybridized or something somehow. The red navel orange, and you can see there's them little beads or bloom heads on it. So there's probably hundreds of blooms that'll be opening up soon. Will that translate to hundreds of fruit? I don't know if this tree can actually hold that much or not, but we'll see. Olive tree. This one is probably 10 years old or more, and the goats, before we got rid of them, of course they destroyed it, and it's probably about 2.5, 3 foot, maybe 4 foot tall now. So it's kind of coming out more bushy from the bottoms and stuff, but these supposedly can live for over 1,000 years in the right circumstances. So it came back I've seen some bloom in a container, but I've never seen any here bloom in the ground. So we'll see what happens over the next few years. It's definitely old enough to bloom. Pineapple guava. These are also something the goats really tried to destroy. These are two different cultivar seedlings or whatever. The leaf shape and everything's different. They have bloomed several times and never produced, but as I said, the goats tried to destroy these, but they're green again. Hopefully they'll keep growing, and maybe eventually they'll actually cross-pollinate and create some fruit for us. I've never actually had one. Next to that is the Sambucan, or Sambo lemon, or Sambucan grapefruit. And it is actually, I don't know if you can see up there or not, I'm looking in the sun again. Hundreds of little bloom heads and leaflets and stuff. Problem with this variety is a lot of times it dries out. It's not like moist like it should be. You'll randomly get one that's like really moist when you bite into it, and it's good. They are really seedy, so it's kind of a novelty fruit anyway. But a lot of times you'll take 2 or 3 and just open them up, and they're not old, they're just dry. So it's hard to like want to sell or buy this kind of fruit even as a novelty item if a lot of them are just going to be dry and no good, you know. So this is a novelty item that you should probably just plant for yourself, enjoy if you like it. It kind of tastes like lemonade. So that's that. This is our Mineola Tangelo in a container. Now this is one of Natalie's favorites. Our goats killed our last tree, so it's fixing to bloom in the container, but as soon as we plant it in the ground, it'll probably go into a growth mode because of how fertile our soil is. And it may bloom 1 year and then just like stop for 5, 6, 8 years. That's just our experience here in the swamp. It's like very heavy acidic soil. So we're keeping it, you know, at least for 1 winter in the container, and we'll probably plant it out in spring or early summer. Hopefully this will not be like the rest of them. Hopefully it'll bloom faster, but you know, it is a little bigger than some of the ones I bought, so it might have another extra year or 2 of growth on it. But this is our largest of the pawpaw trees. There's the trunk, and it goes up here, and this blooms a lot. It just doesn't have enough trees around it to get a good fertilization. There was like 3 or something on it last year, and there's been like 1 or 2 before. The quality of this one, this is a Tennessee Mountain seedling from, you know, it's probably 20 years old, something like that. And at minimum, it should provide us, you know, pollination for any of the other trees around here, as long as they get some growth on them, you know. And yeah, it probably does like 100 blooms or more every year now. And there's a small one about 15 foot away from it that does like 5 or 6 blooms, which obviously isn't enough to pollinate everything, but it is big enough to hold a lot of fruit. The problem is that they're tiny fruit. They taste kind of like a cross between a persimmon and an avocado. So if you read about pawpaws, I guess they're variable from tree to tree and cultivar to cultivar. So some of them will taste like mango, pineapple, banana, like melon, like cantaloupe or something. And some of them people just don't like. And if this was your first experience, you'd probably be like, it's not that great. Unless you like avocados, and it would probably be kind of cool. But I've talked earlier about like so many of the pawpaw trees just haven't got the growth on them. And this took a lot of years. You know, it's probably growing 3-4 inches a year until it got its growth spurt. So once it gets that growth spurt, it might grow a foot a year, you know, maybe more than that. Well, it's probably about 14, 15 foot in the air now. If all of them were this size, we'd have no problem with pollination. This is our wild area. This was the longer run of the goat area. This is where all the goats stayed, unless I was separating like a pair or you know, 2 or 3 females or whatever that were in heat or something, or if I was separating the bucks in their own buck pen. This is kind of going wild, and there's a lot of elderberries here, so I decided that I was going to just see what kind of quality these elderberry shrubs are going to be. And the reason why is because I brought several cultivars of elderberries, and they got crossed with the wild Florida, you know, elderberries that I also brought in this area. So some of them seem to be a little more superior than the named cultivars, and will, you know, really large bloom heads, slightly larger seeds, you know, or berries, and a ton more berries. So as far as flavor, I'm not sure if you can really tell a difference, but the smell of the flowers, and if they get bigger berries, that's a plus because it's less work. They get bigger bloom heads, flower heads for fritters, or just to have a more massive amount of berries. That's also a plus. So we will see, and we may end up chopping them all out if they're no good, or we may end up, you know, propagating more and like planting them in a row or whatever. This is kind of like a blank area as well. It's kind of early on was my kids' playground, and we may revitalize this and make it a playground as well, you know, more up to date with better stuff, and just take care of this yard a little bit better. But we can also plant stuff, you know, persimmons. You know, this is most likely the area slightly higher ground that we would put like avocados or whatever. And you know, obviously we could put some more citrus. This is also, there is one persimmon right there. It's a Sajo or Sajo, which is a small one, but it's pretty good. And then back over there is my field of goldenrods for herbal teas or whatever. There's just piles and piles of elderberries that have come up everywhere, and these did not exist here, other than 1 or 2 little plants that did not seem to propagate. You know, these usually propagate through roots, so a lot of these, if not all of them, could be the same actual cultivar. They just spread through the roots everywhere. But as I said, these did not exist here, so they had to come from our crossbreedings, you know, and birds eating the berries and just dropping them down and stuff. And we've had a few where I had berries that I didn't use, and I just threw them in a compost bin, and even after like a year or 2 in the freezer, they just still came up. And so yeah, we have a lot of space to plant, and a lot of the dewberries and stuff are coming back where, you know, the goats just ate them. This is where we used to pick dewberries a lot. Blackberries in the church field back there, but dewberries in here. So they're kind of making a comeback, and they're actually in bloom now. So we'll definitely look into getting a couple more avocado experiments, and definitely more citrus, and hopefully some persimmon trees if we can find and afford, you know, some cultivars that we don't already have, which we don't have a lot, but I guess the cost is a big issue now because everything in the stores have gone up, in the nurseries and everywhere. Grafted avocados, cold hardy ones, are kind of a niche market. Some people do not like them, so that probably creates less of a demand for them globally. And certain areas, you know, have a demand and a limited market. So, you know, somebody is grafting, you know, maybe a couple hundred a year, versus like, you know, 500,000 of this cultivar every year, like the Haas and Brogdon and all that, which are more popular varieties, I think. Yep, that's probably it for this video. We're just kind of exploring, you know, our fruit trees and berries and stuff, and just verbalizing some of the ideas I have for the future here. It's kind of sad that, you know, the goats destroyed so much before we got rid of them, and, you know, we had some freezes and flooding that have done some damage, and over the last like 5 years or so, I haven't really been able to put as much effort and, you know, money and stuff into keeping everything going, keeping the experiments up, and, you know, all that good stuff. So we've kind of progressed backwards, or regressed, I guess you would say, instead of progress. But we're not knocked out. We're not out of the game. Hopefully the future has a lot more good experiments, and hopefully a lot more good successes.